Good morning and welcome to the Crafty Canary. Today we're continuing our series on household uses for dental floss, and I want to show you a really crafty one today that involves sewing. So here we are in my sewing room, and I'm going to show you how to use floss to gather like the waistband of a skirt, or gather anything in your sewing that you need to gather. In pattern instructions and in my former life in sewing, I would always do what the patterns instructed you to do, which was to take a long, like a basting stitch, and sew two of them inside the waistband area, and then you would take those and you would gather and gather and gather, and inevitably those would break and you'd end up having to straighten it out and sew those again and start all over again, and it really was not fun and it's a hassle. Anytime you have to gather, it's a hassle. But I learned a trick quite a few years ago to use dental floss to do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take, and this time I'm just using a generic regular waxed floss. You could use unwaxed, you could use any kind really. I guess you could use flavored, but I would probably avoid that so that you don't have some sort of minty smell or whatever on your garment. But use some sort of plain dental floss. Waxed or unwaxed, either one would work. I use this one because it's slightly rounder than the flat glide kind that I use for my teeth, and that way I'm not going to catch it when I sew, because what we want to do is zigzag over the dental floss and not catch the dental floss. So let me show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take, I've made a very miniature little skirt here, so let's pretend we're making a skirt for a doll or a baby. And I'm going to start at one seam, and I'm going to take a long end and leave quite a bit out, probably about 6 or 8 inches. And then I'm going to come to the machine, and right after the seam, I'm going to set my floss at about 1/4 inch from the edge, put my presser foot down with the floss right in the middle, so that when I zigzag, I'm not going to sew into that floss. And I'm going to set all of my dials here to a very wide, kind of long zigzag. So what I'm going to do is just zigzag, being really careful not to pull the floss, because if I pull the floss, it's going to come, and then I might lose it back here. So I want to make sure I don't pull on the floss, and just all the way around until I come back to my beginning point. I'm not doing any kind of back stitching, and I'm just coming all the way around, being really careful not to catch the other side of my little skirt. Okay, so here I am back at my seam. I'm going to stop before I get to the seam or to the point where I started the dental floss. I'm not going to back stitch. I'm going to come up and I'm going to carefully hold everything as I pull it away from the machine. Now I've done this in a very contrasting thread. I've used a dark navy blue so that it doesn't blend in with my dental floss. Now I probably wouldn't use this dark of a thread if I were just doing this in a garment with this particular fabric. I probably would have used a light blue to match the fabric a little better, but I definitely don't want to use white unless I absolutely have to, because I don't want to confuse my thread and my dental floss and accidentally cut the dental floss. So I'm going to use the cutter on the dental floss to cut the dental floss, leaving again quite a long tail. So let me cut that. And so I have, let me show you, all the way around, I have it zigzag down, and I have stopped and started at that seam. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull on each end of the floss and gather it up. Come over to this side, and look at there, beautiful gathers. Now of course you're going to want to pull on this to get the gathers even so that they're not bunched up on more on one side than they are on the other. And to secure it, I'm going to, when I get it the way I want it, I'm going to take a pin and pin right where I started that zigzag on one side, get it where I want it, and then I'm going to do like a figure 8 around the pin. And that will secure it, at least so I can get the waistband sewn on. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Kind of make sure I like the way the gathers look. Stick it in where I stopped the zigzag, and figure 8 around my pin. I don't think you can see it, but I'm doing my best. And then all I will do is sew my waistband on, and that dental floss will be inside because I've put it at 1/4 of an inch. My seam allowance is 5/8 of an inch, so that's going to be inside. I really could, once I get the waistband sewn on, so those gathers are sewn in, I can pull that dental floss out. If I accidentally caught some in the seam, it'd be okay. As long as you get the ends, like the ends of thread, it's okay for it to kind of be inside the seam because it's a lot like thread. It's just floss. So it can serve as thread for you. So I hope that helps if you like to sew, or even if you want to get started sewing and you've always wondered how to do gathers, or you've hated doing that long stitch with gathering and wanted something more simple. This to me is much easier, and it's a great use for dental floss other than for flossing your teeth. So I hope that helps. Come back next week and I'll have another great idea for a household use for dental floss. Be sure to subscribe and like my videos. Thanks very much. Bye.